Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Welcome into the post-game show. The Sixers beat the Chicago Bulls at home to improve to 24-2 at the Wells Fargo Center, which is a ridiculous record. It was not a pretty game by any means, but they won the game, and that's the most important thing. To be honest with you, without Furkan Korkmaz, I don't know if they would have. I got to give him credit. Another big explosive night. And I wonder if, understanding the Sixers made moves at the deadline, that he stepped his game up. He knew inside, listen, the Sixers are bringing in shooters or attempting to. I'm Obama, as Brett Brown would say. I'm trying to think how he's thinking right now. In his brain, he's thinking, I'm Obama. I can make this happen. I can deliver. And he sure did once again. Another ridiculously solid night at a Furkan. He was doing it all. Not only did he have the three-point shooting, he had some beautiful plays as well in there. He had a slam dunk. He was energizing the entire crowd. He had the bench celebrating at such a high rate. It was crazy. Holding everyone back. Josh Richardson going nuts. You could see the team vibing off of Furkan Korkmaz's success. There is a big-time positive out of that because guess what? This team has been down in the dumps. They've had problems with personalities and things like that. So for the team to react off of a role player playing like that, scoring a ton of points, and for the Wells Fargo Center to be that energetic, it was a really cool sight to see. It really is. For the story of Furkan Korkmaz to being cut and being brought back, it's wild. It's a wild one. Now, before we get into more details about this game, a couple things. Not just my SeatGeek promo code, which you can use for $20 off of your total purchase when buying tickets to a Sixers game, an NBA game, an NHL game, or any game out there. Not just the SeatGeek promo code, but also, if you did not know, you can follow me on Twitter at Broads81, and I am now a Sixers insider for 97.3 ESPN. So I have a credential. I will be going to all the games. This was my first game as a media member. It was really cool. I got to be in the room where Embiid was interviewed after the game, Furkan and Glenn Robinson as well, along with Brett Brown. So I am now going to be posting different type of stuff throughout the game. Pre-game warm-ups and pre-game shoot-arounds. I will have video footage. I will be pumping out a ton of information on my Twitter account at Broads81 during home games when I am attending. So, the team started out on fire in the first quarter, 38 points, and it looked like it was going to be one of those nights where the Sixers just roll through a bad Chicago Bulls team. But somehow, by the end of the third quarter, it's a tied basketball game? Come on, fellas, you should be destroying this team. They ended up scoring 35 in the fourth and taking control. They ran away with it in the fourth quarter. It was as if they said, okay, let's go, fellas. All right, it's time. Let's just get this one out of the way. Let's beat this team for 12 minutes, and let's move on to the next game with one left to play, which is the LA Clippers before the All-Star break. They turned it on in the fourth, and they did what they needed to. Joel Embiid got the ball in certain spots. He delivered. He also knocked down a three and gave a celebration. And he was asked about it post-game, and he pretty much stated he did that because he was talking to himself and mad at himself. He's not playing the way that he should be playing. He's not knocking down shots like he is used to knocking them down. So he's frustrated with himself, and that was the way to do that. Now, we saw Al Horford get booed last game, and he put up the shh celebration. So you can take it how you want to take it. There were plenty of boos throughout that game. Not just for Joel Embiid, but for the team as a whole. There was a moment in the third quarter when the second half just started where the Sixers lost the lead and the heavy boos came crashing down. Al Horford was getting booed when he missed all of his shots. And that's right, I said all of his shots. He did not make one bucket. Probably the worst game of his entire career. That's pretty nuts to think about. Al Horford could not score 1 point. Not a good look. Absolutely not a good look. And I don't know how they fix this issue. It might be put him on the bench, which is something we have been saying for a while now. You got to find ways. You got to find ways to utilize him in a different role. If it's not going to work, screw how much you paid him. Find a way to make it work. If it is going to be the bench, then it's going to have to be the bench. But with him and Joel and Ben, sometimes the spacing is so screwed up, you're going to have to play him in a different spot. This is telling. A 0-point night by Al Horford is telling. Now, to expect this based off of that spacing every single night, well, that would be silly. Because he hasn't had this type of performance in his entire career, even with this team, even with this spacing. So you could shake it off as one of those nights, unless this becomes a common theme where he's scoring 0 points. But I do think he needs to be utilized in a different spot because you're not getting the most out of him, you're not getting the best out of him. And he is still a good player. But with this identity of an offense, which we are still, I guess, trying to figure out, it's not working. So you got to do something different. Embiid, 28 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, but he did go to the free throw line 14 times, so he was willing to get fouled. You got to go to the free throw line. Ben Simmons, a triple-double, 19, 10, and 10, had a couple steals, and oh, by the way, he went to the free throw line a handful of times as well. Getting to the line, knocking them down, shooting a good percentage over this recent stretch of games. You need to see Ben continue that confidence at the charity stripe. So Embiid had a bunch of blocks. Ben Simmons had a handful of steals, but the defense didn't play great as a whole. I wasn't thrilled with the defense. They didn't lock down. They didn't clamp down. The Bulls scored a decent amount of points. Over 110? I mean, let's go now. They don't have that many threats on that team. They don't really have any. Fournette? No. Stop. Come on. How? The defense wasn't as strong, even though you can look at some of the players and see their statistics, and it shows blocks and it shows steals. That's why the crowd was booing the way that they were booing, because they were not satisfied with the effort level defensively and, to be honest with you, offensively at times as well. The star of the show, without a doubt, was Furkan. And it was truly exciting. There's no doubt about it. I got to tip my cap to this kid because he was put in a really tough situation. He was essentially let go by the team and said, we're moving on from you. And he ends up coming back and shooting like this, getting the energy level in the building like this, essentially being the guy in games. It's crazy. Like, I watched that entire game, and no one really stood out to me. I know stats will show you Joel Embiid with 28 points, and it will show a triple-double for Ben Simmons, and I'm not saying they didn't do anything, but Furkan Korkmaz was easily the one to really impact the game the most, and he stood out the most by a mile. I do need to give credit to Glenn Robinson. He was put in a tough spot, getting thrown into the mix, and I thought he did a really good job. He showed his athleticism. He knocked down his shots, finished with double digits off the bench after taking a red eye. He said that post-game. Now, it was an odd situation. It was an odd situation where the trade deadline happened, how many days ago? And you don't have the two new guys on the roster yet? Like, it took way too long. While you have Robert Covington taking red eyes the night of and sleeping at coaches' houses and playing the next game, there were other players that found ways to get on the court way before these two decided to even get into Philadelphia. Like, what was the reason for that? It seems so odd, and Alec Burks did not get any run. And speaking of not getting any run, neither did Raul Neto for the last 2 games. So there's something to be said about that. Now, maybe that's because Josh Richardson is getting eased in back into the lineup, and he's playing that 6-man backup point guard role. Maybe if he gets back into the starting rotation, Neto will be that second ball handler. I don't know. There's a ton of different looks that you're going to have to start seeing, because Josh is going to have to get more minutes. Furkan has been put in a good position by himself. He's putting himself in a good position to earn more minutes and to fight for those minutes along with everybody else. Glenn Robinson's going to be playing. Alec Burks is going to be playing. Is Mike Scott playing well enough? Can he work Tobias and Ben Simmons in that 4 spot and weave Mike Scott out of the rotation, because he hasn't really been producing, and that will be able to move those guards up in the rotation to grab more minutes at specific spots while keeping Ben Simmons or Tobias on the floor. I don't see Brett Brown taking Mike Scott out of the rotation, but as a whole, I don't think he has performed good enough to really hold that spot. That's just my personal opinion. The Clippers are next. That's going to be a big game. Now, the Clippers do sit people a lot. There's a ton of load management within that organization. One night it's Kawhi, one night it's Paul George, one night it's both. You never know what you're going to get, what type of team. Landry, Shamet returning to the Wells Fargo Center. I'm sure that's going to be a fun time. This game, though, this game against the Bulls, it was frustrating, but they won the game, and they turned it on in the fourth quarter, and that's what they needed to do to get the win. I don't put too much stock in this game. I like that Furkan is playing with confidence. He's being a difference maker right now. I said once he gets that one hot game again, he goes on a mini tear. He goes on a mini run, and at this moment, he is absolutely doing that. I'll tell you what, when he releases it, what goes on in my head? Oh, that's going in. Like Furkan Korkmaz, I'm admitting it, is shooting the basketball, and instantly I think to myself, that is going in. That was not the case over the last 2 seasons. He has really turned into his own, and he's really embraced the moment, and it's something that I admire. Because it's one of those stories, those sports stories, where you can look back and look at his journey and say, whoa, what is going on? Now, once again, postseason basketball is a different style of play, and this is the Chicago Bulls we were talking about. If Giannis is out there in the Milwaukee Bucks, is it the same type of open looks? Is Furkan delivering at the same speed? We're going to have to wait and see. When the game slows down, we're going to have to wait and see if Furkan will be able to do the same stuff. But with what he's doing right now in these moments, he's making noise. He's getting this team involved. There's a sense of the locker room having juice because of his success. He's a role player succeeding at a high level right now, and the team is feeding off of it and building off of it. And it's cool to see, because during my prime of my hockey career, that was me. I was the role guy. I was the energy guy. I wasn't the most skilled guy, but I did the little things that would get the boys going. Now, I never did anything equivalent to dropping 31 points in a basketball game. I didn't score 2 or 3 goals or anything, so the team was going crazy, but I would block shots on the penalty kill, get a good block involved, or do something like that. And it's comparison, it's the same thing as if I went to the bench and everyone was going crazy. It's the same thing as seeing Josh Richardson on the sideline going nuts. I feel like I passed over Ben Simmons. Just, oh yeah, by the way, Ben had a triple-double. Well, let's go back a little bit. 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 19 points. And I mentioned the free throw shooting. It's been remarkable. There were a few plays, though, that he made that was stunning. One, this didn't actually end in points. It ended up in a 3-point attempt. The way he went up with it for like a pump fake, even though it wasn't really a shot because he was close to the basket. Then he fake passed it, and then he made another beautiful pass. It tricked all of the defenders, and it went to a wide open look. I believe it was Matisse Thybulle, if I remember correctly. I don't remember exactly who it was in the corner off the top of my head, but it was just a beautiful move. And some of the things he does with the ball, full speed, downhill, it's incredible. Should the Sixers have beat this team by way more? No doubt about it. A 19-win Bulls team comes to town. You should destroy them, especially on their home floor, because you can't just throw that out of the equation. This team wins on their home floor at an insane rate. So they should have crushed this team, no question, from the jump. After that first quarter, they should have kept their foot on the gas pedal, and it was as if they got ugly, Their offense did not produce as much. Their defense was not at the elite level that it needed to be, and it just allowed the Bulls to hang in there. I had a gut feeling that were the Bulls really going to be the third team to beat the Sixers on their home floor, just because throughout the second quarter and at the top of the third quarter where the Sixers came out flat and the boos came down and Brett Brown had to call a timeout, in those moments, it didn't feel right. It didn't look right. But you saw the fourth quarter happen. You saw Furkan Korkmaz. You saw Embiid make some plays. You saw Ben make some plays. You even saw Tobias Harris knock down a shot. You saw Matisse Thybulle in that spot go out there and compete. Glenn Robinson in the fourth quarter. You saw players out there. So much action that went down in this basketball game as a whole. And just seeing it from a different perspective, too. It was very unique, and I can't wait to take this opportunity by the horns and continue to cover this basketball team for the rest of the season. It was an awesome experience, and I really am thrilled to continue to do this. It's going to be a fun ride without a doubt. So I'm going to be back at the arena on Tuesday against the Clippers, and there will be a real team to go up against. A top team in the NBA to go up against. I can't wait to see how the Sixers perform. So, before we end this, we had a couple calls come in. The 24/7 anytime hotline was not as crazy as it was over the last few games. I did not pump out the phone number right after the game, and maybe that was a reason why, so I will continue to do that moving forward. But we had a couple calls that I thought was worthy, so let's start us off with the first call.
What's up, bros? It's Danny. I love your account, man. I've been around there since, 2K. Listen, I wanted to get your thoughts on two things from the game. First of all, Embiid hits that dagger and he tells the crowd to shut up. That was a little bit just concerning for me. I didn't love that because the last thing I want is Embiid wanting out. Second, I love Korkmaz just as much as the next guy, but I'm a little bit concerned with how well he's playing right now, and that if he keeps playing too well, I can't see Brett Brown not playing in the playoff series, and you know it just as much as the next guy. Korkmaz is going to get cooked in the playoffs. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Joel Embiid asking for a trade. Are we there? Is that really where we're at right now? Concerned with Joel Embiid wanting a trade because he's frustrated with himself and frustrated and giving the shh sound to the crowd? I don't know if I'm there yet. There's clearly some sort of dysfunction going on in the locker room and with the team and with the flow as a whole. I mean, we can all see it without a doubt. It's really there. It's a thing. It's not a mirage. But to the extreme of he's going to ask for a trade, I think we just need to cool the jets a bit. Because it wasn't that way last year. Because it wasn't that way the year before. You just need to find the right way and the proper way to handle this when it comes to this roster. It's a different look. But I guess I'm just not there yet to start worrying about the trade. And the second part of your question about Furkan Korkmaz, I kind of already assume that Furkan is going to get some run in the postseason. Now, you have your rotation probably to 7 people or so, a 7-man rotation, 8-man maybe when it comes down to the postseason, 8-man maybe. I already expect him to possibly be touching that rotation just because he is that 3-point piece that is playing really, really solid. Now, when things slow down, if he starts to get abused and Brett Brown sees that, he might have to pull the trigger on Furkan, but I already assume that he's at least going to get a chance and an opportunity in the postseason, and from there, it's up to him to deliver. If he's knocking down his shots, if he's shooting 40% from 3, then maybe he gets his run and he gets to go with it, but he won't be playing 30 minutes a night in the postseason. If he does get any time, it will be very, very limited because you're going to be running with the top dogs, because Richardson, Ben Simmons, and Embiid, Tobias, those guys, they're going to be getting most minutes. And then you have Burks. If Alec Burks performs better and if he can do a better job defensively while keeping up the shooting at the same rate as Furkan Korkmaz, well, then it's a totally different ball game. But there's so much time until the Sixers figure that out, and the only way to figure that out is get into those moments and to get into the playoffs, and we're going to have to wait for those specific moments to truly see what's going to happen with Brett Brown and those rotations. But you do realize that the rotations get cut down so heavily, and you're talking about 2 or 3 guys maybe off the bench as a whole. And those guys don't get insane minutes. They're very small.
Hey, bro, this Coop from South Jersey again. Furkan Korkmaz. Man, that dude's the GOAT. But nah, seriously, man. 2 30-point games in a row. This guy is really, really starting to win me over. I didn't like him at first like you, but, I mean, he's had a few of these really good performances this year, so I'm liking what I'm seeing. I have no clue why Brett Brown didn't play Alec Burks tonight. For whatever reason, he doesn't like guys with the last name Burks. I'm kind of getting tired of this dude. I really wish they would fire him mid-season and bring somebody else in.
I don't think that that's going to happen. You had Elton Brand talk about Brett Brown and pretty much give him his props, and not giving him his props as if he's doing a great job this season. Elton came out and pretty much stated that he's frustrated and he knows the team is frustrated, but he supported Brett Brown and supported him being here. It's just too late. It really is. At this point, firing the head coach, it's not going to do much, and the people who want him fired anyway argue, well, what's the difference because this isn't being successful? It's just not how the Sixers organization is going to do it this season. So when you realize that, you can move forward with it. The thing with Alec Burks is there must have been a situation with medical or him not understanding the plays or him not knowing anything with this team at all, and that's the reason why he didn't play. You are going to see him getting minutes in the rotation. There was a reason why they traded for him. You can argue that he was a bigger acquisition than Glenn Robinson, and maybe Glenn Robinson played because he was here before, and because he was here before, he understood some of the Brett-isms, if you will. That was a term used during the training camp, or there was a big book of Brett's philosophy and his words and all that, because Glenn Robinson was here in the past, although it was a totally different time and a totally different Sixers team. Maybe that was the reason why Glenn Robinson got run and Alec Burks didn't, but there was clearly a reason. It's not like this guy's going to get no minutes ever. There would be no reason for him to come over here if that was the case.
Trade Embiid and Simmons. Build around Furkan Korkmaz.
Really? Really? That's where we're at. That's how we're going to end this. Are we really going to do that? We can't do that, can we? Unbelievable. Trade everybody and keep Furkan Korkmaz and build around him. Furkan running the point, making plays happen. I'm just picturing it in my head right now. That's awesome. Furkan had some steals too, may I add. He picked the pocket a couple times. He had some spark to his game. You can't watch that basketball game that occurred and say anything otherwise. There were 2 legit takeaways from me. Furkan Korkmaz exploding and being a difference maker, and Al Horford scoring 0 points. One extreme to the next. One guy performing at a high level, the other looking ugly. I don't know what to do about it other than try something new. Give him different looks. Put him on the bench and bring him in the game in other ways. Utilize him differently. Maybe get him posting up more. Maybe get some pick and pops, and not pick and pops from 3. Pick and pops from the elbow, from the free throw line. Get him those type of looks, the mid-range pick and pops. Get some baseline pick and pops. Something to get the guy going. It's not like he shot the ball 25 times, by the way, to score 0 points. He barely put up any shots. But still, for a guy like Al Horford to score 0 points, it's ridiculous. And I don't like the way the fan base is turning on him, though. To me, it just doesn't relate to me. I don't see it. To boo the guy. Like you want this guy to succeed. And it's different because it doesn't feel like a respect boo. It's not a hey, pick it up boo. It feels like a we are so disgusted with you. We are so pissed off and hating that contract type of boo. It's not a, hey, pick it up, Al, we love you, but you're not performing at the level we want you to boo. It's a pissed off boo. That's the vibe I get from it, and that's why I don't like it. That's how I feel. So let me know your thoughts down below. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and I will see you next time.